I woke up to the smell of antiseptic and the dull throb of a headache that felt like a drill bit boring into my skull. The text message glowed on my phone screen. The joint account is empty. I took what I'm owed. Don't try to find me. My wife of 20 years, Monica, had cleaned me out while I was unconscious, fighting for my life after a 5-alarm warehouse fire. I just stared at the words, the sterile beep of the heart monitor the only sound. I typed back a single thumbs up emoji, then closed my eyes. The next day, when the doctor said I could leave, I didn't go home. My name is Ethan Cole, 40, 8 years old, and for the last 25, I've been a firefighter, a captain with Station 7. It's not a life of luxury, but it's a life of purpose, one I thought Monica understood, even respected. The doctors said the smoke inhalation had been severe. I'd been out for nearly 48 hours, flirting with the edge. Lucky to be alive, they said, lucky. The word felt like ash in my mouth. That single message from Monica, it wasn't just about the money, over $150,000. Our entire life savings, contingency funds I'd carefully built, knowing the risks of my job. It was the coldness, the finality. I should have felt a firestorm of rage, the kind I faced in burning buildings. Instead, what washed over me was a profound, bone-deep wariness. When the nurse asked if someone was coming to get me, I lied, said yes. That evening, I called my younger brother, Mark. He's a contractor, solid as the foundations he pours. We hadn't talked in a couple of weeks, just life getting in the way. Need a big favor, I said, my voice raspy. Name it. Mark replied instantly, no hesitation. Need a place to lay low, and don't tell Monica you've heard from me. A short silence. Then, she knows you're out. Oh, she knows I'm alive, I said. She just doesn't know I'm not walking back into that house. Mark picked me up, his face a mixture of concern and anger when I told him the basics. He helped me into his spare room, a small, tidy space that felt like a fortress compared to the ruins of my marriage. He's been through a nasty divorce himself. He understood the quiet shock, the feeling of the ground disappearing beneath your feet. Get some rest, Ethan. We'll figure this out. But rest didn't come easy. My mind replayed scenes, searching for the warning signs I'd missed, the small cracks that had become a chasm. Looking back, the embers had been smoldering for a while. Monica's complaints about my dangerous job and unpredictable hours had grown more frequent over the last few years. She'd started attending women's empowerment and investment seminars run by some self-proclaimed guru, talking about financial independence with a fervor that made me uneasy. There were new, expensive friends I never met, hushed phone calls, and an increasing distance in her eyes. I'd attributed it to midlife dissatisfaction, to the strain my profession sometimes put on our home life. I'd trusted her. That was the foundation of marriage, wasn't it? Trust. But I wasn't entirely naive. My profession teaches you about worst-case scenarios, about being prepared. Years ago, after seeing a colleague's widow struggle with entangled finances and legal limbo after he died in the line of duty, I'd taken precautions. Our primary residence, the one I'd mostly paid for with an inheritance from my parents and savings before we were married, I'd had it put solely in my name during a refinance a few years back. The official reason was liability protection, given the risks inherent in firefighting, something Monica had seemed uninterested in at the time, waving away the paperwork. You handle all that financial stuff, Ethan. It's too complicated for me, she'd said. I also had a very specific medical power of attorney, drafted by a lawyer friend designating Mark, not Monica. She'd always been squeamish about medical decisions, once telling me she couldn't bear to make those kinds of choices. And then there was the small, separate savings account I maintained, funded by the occasional fire safety training courses I taught on my off days. Monica had dismissed it as my little hobby fund, never paying it much mind. It wasn't much, but it was mine untouched. We met 20 years ago. I'd rescued her kitten from a ridiculously tall oak tree in her parents' yard. Sounds like a scene from a bad movie, I know. She looked at me like I was a hero. We married within a year. She was 25, I was 28. She was proud in the beginning of what I did, but the pride slowly eroded, replaced by a fear that morphed into resentment. The missed holidays, the constant low-level anxiety every time I walked out the door for a shift, the community events I couldn't always attend with her. I loved the camaraderie of the firehouse, the sense of making a real difference. She wanted stability, predictability, a life less on edge. Our paths had diverged so gradually I hadn't seen the fork until it was miles behind me. The first few days at Mark's were a blur of doctor's follow-ups and fitful sleep. He mostly left me to my thoughts, just making sure I ate. On the third day, I logged into my online banking from Mark's old laptop. The joint account was a wasteland, exactly as Monica's screenshot had shown. But it was the transaction history that made my blood run cold. Several large transfers, just under $10,000 each to avoid automatic reporting, had been made to an account I didn't recognize in the days leading up to the final sweep. The dates coincided with my unconsciousness in the hospital. And then smaller, regular payments over the past 6 months to someone named Julian Vance, Financial Consulting. Vance. The name sparked a memory, Monica mentioning a charismatic financial planner. From one of her seminars? The one who was going to help her achieve true financial freedom. A quick online search for Julian Vance painted a different picture: a string of complaints, accusations of predatory investment schemes targeting vulnerable individuals, mostly women. His website was slick, full of testimonials about life-changing financial enlightenment. It reeked of a con. My firefighter training, the years of sifting through debris for clues of assessing volatile situations kicked in. I started digging through my digital archives. I'm meticulous about records, a habit from managing station budgets and detailed incident reports. Everything important: communications, financial summaries, insurance policies, was backed up to a secure cloud server. I found emails from Monica forwarded to her personal account mentioning exciting investment opportunities from Vance, a business card for Vance Wealth Solutions I'd once seen on her dresser and dismissed. She'd been secretive about these seminars, and now I knew why. The evidence suggested this wasn't just Monica impulsively grabbing cash. This had been planned, orchestrated. My anger, which had been a dull, throbbing H, now sharpened, focused. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a conspiracy. Mark, seeing the grim set of my jaw as I pieced things together, recommended a lawyer, Rachel Stein. He said, she handled a contract dispute for me last year. Smart, tough, doesn't miss a thing. I met Rachel Stein the next day in her downtown office. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with an air of calm competence. I laid out everything: the timeline of my hospitalization, Monica's message, the empty bank account, the solo title on the house, my medical POA assigned to Mark, the suspicious transfers to Julian Vance, and my digital records. Rachel listened intently, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she nodded slowly. Captain Cole, what your wife did while you were medically incapacitated, particularly transferring funds that were predominantly your earnings or marital assets, could constitute financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. That's a serious offense, beyond the usual scope of a divorce. A flicker of hope ignited within me. The house being solely in your name, with clear documentation of its purchase history, is a significant advantage, she continued. And Mr. Vance, he sounds like a classic predator. We need to investigate his connection to Monica and these funds immediately. Rachel's team got to work. Her paralegal, a young, tenacious woman named Lena, started a deep dive into Julian Vance and his network of shell companies. Armed with the information I'd provided and Ethan's meticulous financial history, they subpoenaed bank records for the LLC linked to Vance that had received Monica's investment money. The picture that emerged was damning. Monica hadn't just been investing. She'd been systematically siphoning money from our joint accounts into Vance's schemes for months before the fire. The large withdrawals while I was in the hospital were likely a panicked move, perhaps urged by Vance, to grab everything before I recovered and discovered the extent of her deceptions. The investment workshop had been a grooming ground. The empowerment was a carefully crafted illusion to gain her trust and access to our money. A few days later, Monica started calling. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Ethan, please, we need to talk. It's not what you think. Julian, he missiled me. I was scared. Rachel had been unequivocal. No contact. Let her panic. Anything she says to you can be twisted. All communication goes through me. Following Rachel's advice, I remained silent. We filed a motion for an emergency hearing to freeze all known assets and requested an order granting me exclusive temporary possession of the house, given my medical state and her actions. Then, Rachel devised a way to potentially get more. You mentioned a joint safety deposit box, she asked. Yes, but I cleared out anything valuable months ago. Put it in a new one, solely in my name. Another old habit from work: keep critical personal documents secure and accessible only by me or Mark in an emergency. Excellent, Rachel said with a rare smile. She probably thinks it's still full. Let's see if she tries to access it. Rachel had a contact at the bank who could discreetly monitor access attempts on the old box, all above board as part of our asset discovery. Sure enough, 2 days later, Monica attempted to access the old safety deposit box. When the bank manager informed her it had been emptied by me and subsequently closed some time ago, she reportedly became frantic. Later that day, Rachel received a call from a private investigator she sometimes worked with on complex cases. He'd been legally monitoring Julian Vance, based on the evidence of potential fraud. Monica had called Vance from a pay-as-you-go phone immediately after leaving the bank. The PI, using legally permissible methods in the state where Vance was located, a one-party consent state for recording calls made or received there, which Vance was, had recorded the conversation. Vance was trying to calm a hysterical Monica. Just stick to the plan, Monica! The money's safe, some of it anyway. He can't prove anything if you just stay strong. We say you were protecting marital assets from his erratic behavior before he went into the hospital. Her voice, shrill with panic, but Ethan knows. He took everything from the box. What about the offshore account Julian said was untraceable? Is it safe? He'll find out about us. That last part was gold. The emergency hearing was 2 weeks later. I wore a suit Mark had helped me pick out, feeling alien in it after years in uniform. Monica was there with a slick, expensive-looking lawyer. Julian Vance was conspicuously absent, though Rachel had made sure he was subpoenaed to appear as a witness regarding the financial transactions. His failure to appear would be noted. Judge Harrison, a no-nonsense woman in her late 50s, reviewed the filings. Monica's lawyer argued that Monica had acted out of fear and desperation, believing I was hiding assets, the solely titled house, and that she was merely protecting her share. Then Rachel Stein calmly presented our case, my medical records confirming incapacitation, the timeline of Monica's withdrawals, the evidence of the systematic transfers to Vance's LLC, the solo ownership documentation for the house showing its provenance primarily from my separate property, and then the ASIA transcript and audio snippet of Monica's panicked call to Vance. The judge's expression hardened as she listened to Monica and Vance discussing their plan and a traceable money. M's Cole. Judge Harrison said, her voice like ice. This recording suggests a deliberate, premeditated effort to defraud your husband, particularly while he was medically vulnerable. And Mr. Vance's failure to appear today, despite being subpoenaed, speaks volumes. Monica's face was ashen. Her lawyer spluttered objections, but the damage was done. The judge granted our motions. All known assets, including those traced to Vance that could be reached, were frozen. I was granted exclusive temporary use of the marital home. Furthermore, the judge added, staring directly at Monica, I am referring the evidence of financial exploitation and potential conspiracy to defraud to the district attorney's office. Attempting to hide assets and colluding to deceive your spouse during a medical crisis is not something this court tolerates. Leaving the courtroom, Monica tried to approach me, her eyes wide with a fear I hadn't seen there before, not fear of me, but of actual consequences. Ethan, I walked past her without a word, Rachel at my side. This is a very strong start, Rachel said once we were clear. The DA will likely open an investigation into Vance, and Monica will be under immense pressure. The divorce was finalized with surprising speed. Faced with irrefutable evidence of financial misconduct and the looming threat of criminal charges if she fought too hard, Monica, on the advice of her chastened lawyer, agreed to a settlement heavily in my favor. I received the house outright, reflecting my significant separate property contribution and her economic fault. I also got the lion's share, nearly 80% of the recoverable marital savings, including what Rachel's team managed to claw back from one of Vance's more accessible accounts before it vanished completely. Monica was left with her car, her personal belongings, and a small fraction of the funds, most of which would likely go to her legal bills. Julian Vance, I later heard, was indeed indicted on multiple fraud charges, partly due to the evidence from my case paving the way for other victims to come forward. I moved back into the house a few weeks after the hearing. It felt strange, hollowed out by betrayal. The scent of Monica's perfume lingered faintly in the closet, a ghost of a life that was now definitively over. I sold it 6 months later. Too many echoes. I bought a smaller, more manageable townhouse closer to Mark and his family. The physical recovery from the fire had been slow, and the doctors advised against returning to active firefighting. My heart, though healed, wasn't up for the sustained physical stress. The department offered me a position as an instructor at the fire academy. It was different, trading the adrenaline of the front lines for the satisfaction of shaping new recruits, but it was still connected to the life I knew, the brotherhood. I found a new rhythm. I spent more time with Mark, helping him with some of his construction projects on weekends, rediscovering the simple satisfaction of building something tangible. I used a portion of the settlement to establish a small emergency relief fund at Station 7, a resource for firefighters and their families facing unexpected crises, a quiet way to honor the lessons I'd learned about preparedness and support. One afternoon, clearing out some old boxes, I found our wedding album. For a moment, I considered tossing it, erasing that chapter. But I didn't. I put it back. It was part of my story, a painful but formative one. The fire nearly took my life. Monica's betrayal nearly broke my spirit. But standing there, in my new, smaller home, with the sounds of Mark's kids playing in the distance, I realized I was still here. Changed, yes. Wounded, certainly. But stronger, more aware. Some lessons, you learn through fire. Some people, you lose for reasons that eventually become painfully clear. And sometimes, the life you're forced to rebuild, brick by painstaking brick, turns out to be more solid, more authentically yours, than the one you lost. The stability I craved wasn't in a joint bank account. It was in my own resilience, in the unwavering loyalty of true family like Mark, and in the quiet strength I found in facing the flames and walking out the other side.